Thank you very much. I apologize for us getting a little bit of a late start. Thank you for being patient with us. We're going to go ahead and get started. We still have a few folks from our organization who are traveling up here. To start with, we're here at Charlotte Water to discuss the start of our interbasin transfer effort. And I think we have some elected officials in the room, and I would like to take a minute and ask them, some of them I'm not familiar with, if they would care to stand up and offer their name so we can recognize them. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for that. My name is David Zur. I am the Deputy Director with Charlotte Water. I'm joined here tonight by a few folks that are going to help us through the presentation. First, I'd like to recognize Harold Brady with the State of North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. We also have another Deputy Director, Mr. Ron Hargrove, here with us this evening. Thomas Powers, who is legal counsel for us with the City of Charlotte. And some other folks who I'm not seeing right now, Sean Kaufman, if he is in the room, he may be trying to get in like some other folks. And to that point, let me acknowledge the turnout here is great. This is what we are trying to do. We want to hear your feedback. The venue is not large enough to that end. We will be hosting a follow-up meeting here. It needs to be advertised long enough for folks to be aware of it. So I don't know the date yet. Venue, I understand there are some larger venues available. We will be we're all for that, turning back for the folks who are standing in the back and others that aren't able to get in, we'll be having a second follow-up meeting. So that's kind of some of the logistics to get through. And with that, let's see what we got here on our first slide. So our director, Angela Charles, is one of those that is caught in traffic. There were some bad storms on the way up here, so she will be here soon. I have introduced Mr. Harold Brady, who is going to very briefly give a generic overview of interbasin transfers in the state of North Carolina. Then we will turn it over to Ron Hargrove with Charlotte Water, and he will discuss Charlotte Water's interbasin transfers. And then we will open it up at the end for a period of questions and comments, doing our best to address those. And if we're unable to, noting that we will be taking all of that information and putting it, logging it into our website that we have for this effort. There are QR codes on the sheet that everybody has. I think it will be on one of the slides that you can scan to get you to that website. And noting that some things will be addressed in the subsequent development of the EIS, the environmental impact statement. And mostly, we are here to listen. We want to hear your feedback, your comments, and your thoughts. And we will have plenty of time for that after we get through the presentation. And I'm going to turn it over to Harold Brady with the state, and he will talk through interbasin transfers in North Carolina. Thank you.
Harold Brady. I'm with the Department of Environmental Quality. I work in the Water Supply Planning Branch as the Water Supply Development Coordinator, as well as the IBT coordinator. It's a great round. Thank you for presenting. Can you pull the mic up a little bit? Yeah, so I'm just going to give an overview of what an interbasin transfer is, starting off, trying to start off fairly basic, and this will working up, getting into what the statute requires and what the process is for doing an IBT, interbasin transfer. Okay, let's start off at the beginning. If we're talking about surface waters, so it's not groundwater. This is the withdrawal of surface water from one river basin and moving that water from one river basin to another river basin. And the purpose of the IBT law is to ensure it's good public policy to move that water from one river basin into another. Let me step around here that I need that. Okay, so here's the statute, and here's the threshold zone for the statute. When water systems, when they transfer 2 million gallons a day or more, a water withdrawal, a water transfer certificate is required. That's usually what catches most of the water systems, and it also applies to other water users. However, in North Carolina, it's really, all the certificates are from water systems. The other two don't really happen very often, and in this case, not at all, because in this case, Charlotte Water already has an existing IBT certificate, and they requested to modify that certificate to increase that certificate for allowance to transfer water. All right, so let's get into some basics. The transfer is the withdrawal minus the return. So we're talking about the net and not the gross. So it matters how much is discharged into the other basin. So you go over to one side, and if it comes back over, it's okay. So there's a couple of good examples that I'm talking about here. The example A in the top left, you've got the source basin, and that's denoting a river, it's the Cartoon River, and they're withdrawing 10 billion gallons a day, and they're bringing it into the town, the service area of the town. Now, the service area of the town is built on the ridge line between the river basin. And so half of that, so 5 MGD is used consumptively within that town. That's septic, that's washing cars, watering lawns, etc. So on one side, on the source basin side, it's calculated as 2 MGD is what's put on the ground. And on the receiving basin side is 3. Then there's another 5, equal to 10 that was withdrawn. Another 5 is sent to the river and the other river basin through a wastewater treatment plant discharged into that river. So the total interbasin transfer is that 5 plus the 3 that's used consumptive. So in this example, we're talking about 8. In this bottom example here, it's the same sort of scenario. They're withdrawing 10, but this time the town is entirely within the receiving basin. In the case of Charlotte, they're actually more like the example A, where the service area is on both sides of the river, the basins, river basins. And in this example, they return 5 back to the source basin, and so there's 5 that's used consumptively, and that's the IBT number in this case. So the amount of the transfer is determined by the amount of water from the source basin to the receiving basin, less the amount of water returned back to that source basin. Talk a lot about river basins. Here's a river basin map. So Catawba is going to be 3-1, and the South Fork Catawba is 3-2. And the Yadkin is obviously just to the east of that, and the Rocky River is at 18-1, 18-4, sorry, 18-4. And those are the river basins we were talking about here. Just some high-level information on IBT. There's over 130 water systems across the state that do some sort of water transfer. So a lot of towns and cities in North Carolina are built on the ridge line. So it's an obvious place to build a town as opposed to down the floodplain. And so when they do that, there's some transfer of water from the source basin and then receiving basin. And so likewise, 80% of those are less than 1 MGD. A lot of small towns and communities in North Carolina. There have been 9 IBT certificates that have been issued since the program started in '93. One of those is Charlotte Water. And there's been a previous IBT modification that's been granted, and that was for the towns of Apex and here. There's some water systems have what's called a grandfathered allowance or for pre-existing allowance nowadays, where when the statute was established in July 93, whatever was being transferred, what the infrastructure in the ground could do in July of 93, that amount is grandfathered into it. And there are a handful of water systems that transfer between that 1 and 2 MGD. I mentioned early on, there's a 2 MGD threshold. And so that's what my group in water supply planning, we reach out to water systems or to try to keep tabs on the water being transferred as it nears that threshold. All right, so here are the 9 that are regulated by certificate. I'm not trying to go through each one of them here, but you can see Piedmont Triad, that was issued in 91. That's Lake Randleman, is what precipitated that. Charlotte Water, that was in 02. And the newest one is, most recent one is was Pender County in 2018. We have another ongoing IBT in town Fuquay Marina, Wayne County. Before I move off of that, I want to note the Charlotte Water's 02 certificate limited into 33 million gallons a day from the Catawba to the Rocky. And that is based on a max day. Basically. Okay. Let's get into the process. Top has the statutes or good bureaucratic representation here. There's three primary steps. Obviously, we're in the first step right here, where there's public meetings associated with a notice of intent. We refer to it as NOI, state government. But it's the notice of intent, and there are public meetings that are generally required for them. For a modification, the statute does not compel public meetings. However, in this case, because there is a settlement agreement between North Carolina and South Carolina from the first Charlotte Water IBT certificate, that settlement agreement compels there to be public meetings. Second step gets into the environmental document. The statute requires an environmental assessment, but the settlement agreement requires a much more intensive environmental impact statement document. So that'll be the next step after going through the public meeting phase. And the comments that are generated from these public meetings are viewed as scoping for that environmental document. So that environmental document really needs those comments. We really need those comments so the environmental document can address issues that are brought up in this phase. And then in the third phase, the EMC will issue a final determination based upon the information that has been gathered. So the EMC, the Environmental Management Commission, they are the ones who make the decision on the IBT certificate. It's a 15-member board. They're having their meetings today and tomorrow. I presented to the Water Allocation Committee this morning on this we're talking about today. So the EMC, the statute is very prescriptive. It's very long and very prescriptive, but it allows the EMC to grant the certificate. That's a petition here, but the certificate in whole or in part, deny it outright, and require any mitigation measures that they deem fit. They have a lot of flexibility here. So thinking about their flexibility and their approval process, it's important that they see comments that refer back to the statute. So in making this decision, the EMC is required to specifically consider, so these 9 points of finding the fact that are in the statute. You go through each one of these. So one is necessity and reasonableness. That's really the purpose and need of the project. Is there a demonstrated purpose and need? And that will be in that environmental impact statement, where that purpose and need measured up. What are the impacts, the effects, detrimental impacts on the source basin? 3, what are the cumulative effects on the source basin? So we're talking about indirect and cumulative, long term. what are the impacts to the source basin? And here we're talking about the source basin being the Catawba Basin. 4 gets into the receiving basin impacts, and that's both current as well as indirect and cumulative into the future. And we're talking about the Rocky Basin. 5, reasonable alternatives. So that environmental impact statement will go through multiple alternatives. Yeah, and that impact statement, once it'll go through, it goes through an internal review first, obviously, and then it goes out to a wider, public and agency review, through the state clearinghouse process. Number 6 deals with impoundment of storage capacity. They will be withdrawing out of Lake Norman, and so they will be, working with Duke Energy, on answering that question. 7 deals with allocating down the Corps of Engineers reservoirs. That one's not really applicable here. 8, how does the service area fit on the landscape to the source and receiving basin? So early on, I showed those examples. Example A, where the town is built on the ridge line, and example B, where it's all in the receiving basin. So that number 8 is something that the EMC must consider, when deciding whether to issue a permit or not. And then, as I said earlier, the EMC has a lot of flexibility. So any other facts or circumstances, they are to consider those as well. But I bring this up because framing comments towards these findings of fact are very helpful, particularly to the commission, to address concerns. Yeah, get close to the end and I'll pass it along. So the existing conditions and limitations on an IBT certificate. You know, these are in the statute as well, the IBT statute. Let's see, middle board division approval, so they have to do a water conservation plan. They have to submit a drought management plan and a compliance and monitoring plan. The water conservation plan, they have to demonstrate in that they meet and exceed water conservation initiatives and measures of other water systems in the source basin as well. The high bar. Quarterly monitoring reports are required. It's also a condition for the ability to reopen, amend, and modify the certificate at any time. If new information comes about, or if information that in the EIS is found to somehow be error, the EMC has the flexibility to reopen the certificate. There's no selling of the transfer of water. So this isn't an opportunity for a water system to make some money off the operation. The General Assembly was very clear about that. This is very much demonstrating your purpose and need, and it's defined right up front, right out of the gates, in your purpose and need statement in that environmental impact document. And the EMC can impose additional impacts if necessary, and they do. That's a wrap up of sort of the basics of interbasin transfers. I will certainly be around after this and take questions. After Ron goes.
Thank you, Harold. And our director, Miss Angela Charles, has joined us here, and she would like to say something for just a minute. So I'm going to pass the microphone to her.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here. And I thank you all for attending. I've been driving since 3:42 through the storms, tree across I-85, 2-block roads in Gaston County. And on my way, I was thinking, what do I say to a group of people who love the Catawba as much as we do? This area is upstream from us. And we take what comes down the river to our community, and we treat it well. And we treat it with respect. We are here to listen. We are here to get your comments. We are here to hear your questions. We may not be able to answer them all today, but there will be a log and a recording. And there's a recording now. People are listening virtually now to this meeting. I just wanted to set the stage and the tone for listening, because it is about water. Water falls from the sky. It falls from the sky. And part of our responsibility is to take care of it once it enters the rivers and the streams. So I hope I have given you some of our thought process around being here. We will be available for questions. Ron is gonna come up. He's gonna talk about Charlotte Water and tell you a little more about our organization. And then there will be, I'll come up and talk about some things we've done electronically. Okay? All right, so Ron, you come on up.
Thank you, Lance. Again, my name's Ron Hargrove. I'm one of the deputy directors at Charlotte Water. We are having coordinating another meeting up in this area, and that will be announced. But we also have meetings tomorrow in Charlotte, another one in Albemarle on the 15th, and we're coordinating with South Carolina DHEC for 2 meetings in the South. I will share a little bit about Charlotte Water with you, cover a little bit more of what Carol was talking about for what is an IBT, why is an IBT modification needed now, what is the IBT modification process the schedule Charlotte Water is putting forth to go through to make this request, what alternatives are being considered, and then I'll turn it back over to Angela to cover how can I comment and participate in the remainder of the process. So about Charlotte Water, Charlotte Water serves all of Mecklenburg County. We also have interlocal agreements and connections with about every county surrounding Mecklenburg County. We've got customers mainly in the Catawba, but some do cross the ridge line in the Rocky River Basin, which you can see on the map, the dark areas in Mecklenburg County. We are the largest public water and wastewater utility in North and South Carolina, serving about a million, 0.1 people in our area. We have about 320,000 connections. We employ proactive planning. The initial 2002 IBT request had a 30-year window. Look out for that request to be made. And so we're starting to get to a level of needing to react to getting near to that 33 million gallon limit. And so we are looking at the next 30 years, what's on the horizon based on forecasts, the latest, best information that we can provide or gather from our community about what the needs may be. We are a long-term partner with the Catawba Water Management Group. We're a founding member with that group back in 2007, due to the relicensing process that you actually was going through at the time. We also partner with other stakeholders of water interest, water quality, water quantity along the way. We also employ local and regional conservation throughout planning in our policies and procedures. What is an IBT, interbasin transfer? Again, using Harold's kind of cartoon graphic. This is the numbers that you heard about before with the Charlotte's average data embedded in it. So we draw from the top river. That is our source water. We withdraw about 117 million gallons per day. We return about 75 million gallons per day. back through what people consume, they use, they flush down the drain, comes back to our collection system. There is a consumption in the top of the basin, people, it evaporates through cooling tower, it is used in product, it is used in other means like irrigation, so that does not come back at all. The remainder goes across the river basin, ridge line. There's some consumption at about 5 million gallons. And then there's a discharge, mainly to the Rocky River basin through wastewater treatment. How that's done, just to give you a little bit of how the physical process works in that transfer, as you can imagine, there's an intake in the lakes along the Catawba. Charlotte has 2 of those. We pump that water to one of our 3 treatment plants. It's treated, it's made into potable drinking water. It's then pumped and distributed to all of our customers for them to use according to their needs, either businesses, residents, industries. That water that's not consumed comes back through our collection system to one of our 5 wastewater treatment plants. And it's discharged after it's processed and treated and meets all the permanent standards into the creeks. All but one of those 5 discharged back to the top, but one of them did in the Mallard Creek Basin, which strengthened to the Rocky River Basin. We also have, I'll show you this on the next. We also, again, the county map, you see the arrows going across the ridge. That will be the potable water going across the ridge. The orange arrows is where it's discharged to the Rocky River Basin. We have interlocal agreement with the Water and Sewer Authority in Cabarrus County. They have a plan along the Rocky River, the Rocky River Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. So we've had an agreement, interlocal agreement with them since 1996 to treat a portion of the flow from Mecklenburg County. We also have our Mallard Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant right on the edge of the county that discharges in Mallard Creek. That plant is currently a 13 million gallon a day plant. It's being expanded currently to 16 million gallons. We have 2 intakes on the Catawba, one in Lake Norman, and the largest one is in Mountain Island Lake. That's 80% of our source water comes through Mountain Island Lake. That water is treated at one of our 3 treatment plants. One is in the Huntersville area, the Leas Dukes, and number 2 in Charlotte. So why is a modification needed now? This is a trend chart. We have to report annually on our IBT. Our 2002 certification is for 33 million gallons per day. And that's on the peak day. So the day of the year that you have the highest transfer in your system is how we're measured. Based on the 2023 data, our peak day put us at 79% of that 33 gallons. And so on our horizon, you can see the trend charts. We see the need for that transfer to increase over time. Our current certification was, again, a plan for 30 years. We think somewhere around 2030, that plan will be, we will start to exceed that limit. The other trend line that you see there is our average day. So this shows you what happens on a typical day. You know, in the wintertime, there's lower demand, so there's lower transfer. On those hot summer days, with irrigation increases and other water uses, there's demand to go up. So if you look out, you're looking out at a 30-year horizon, so in the 2055 range, you can see on a peak day basis, we would be, the trend would suggest we're in the low 50 million gallon a day range. On an average day, we could be a little over 40. So our modification process and schedule, just wanted to highlight that we are at step 2 on at least a 12 major step process. We are in the information gathering phase. We have not developed environmental documents. We're not ready to hit go on submitting something to the EOC to get them to react. We're truly here just to listen, to gather your input, to help develop a scope of things we need to study in the EIS process that we're going to embark and turn over to folks like Harold to further develop and submit to the EOC for them to make a determination about that environmental impact. Once that process is done, Charlotte Water will submit a modification request if that's what's deemed appropriate at the time. At that point in time, we will have a number that we're requesting. I know there's been numbers out there that have been put out in the space. We have not dialed in and targeted a specific number. We're looking at the trend lines. We're really looking for the alternatives to be considered so that we can mitigate if possible what that transfer needs to be. The EMC will ultimately get this. They'll have to make a draft determination, and they'll have to have a public hearing regarding that, and then issue their final determination kind of along with Carol shared with. This is just other than the first two steps, this is a straw man schedule. We don't know that it will be this quick. It could take longer, but we know that we had to issue a notice of intent in the spring of 2024 in order to start the process to avoid us exceeding our certification limit. The other thing that we were waiting on to do this, I mentioned that we are a member of the Catawba Water Management Group. The Catawba Water Management Group also is the keeper of the water supply master plan for the Catawba. They got charged with that through the settlement agreement back in 2010 to produce a water supply master plan. It's updated every 2 years, and that the Water Management Group, North Carolina and South Carolina, will contribute to funding that update every 10 years. The first one of those was produced in 2014 and finalized in 2015. And so the Catawba Water Management Group is in the midst of updating that model currently. The model's actually been updated, and the management group is looking at scenario runs to figure out how different factors affect water supply and demand in the future, all the way out to 2100. So we purposely waited to file our notice of intent until the Water Management Group got ahead of our process, so that there was no conflicting information. Charlotte Water signed up to use the model that the Catawba Water is producing. We want there to be one model for the Catawba River. We don't want there to be competing models. We think that makes good planning sense, that we're partnered with them. We're sharing our data just like every other member in the Water Management Group. And so we're letting that model kind of predict what the impacts of our requests would be. So beyond that, somewhere after we get through a process of doing an EIS, we will send a draft to EQ. That will be sent to the EMC and have a public hearing on the adequacy of the EIS. I think Harold mentioned that the EMC has to determine if there's enough study work and data and good science around what was evaluated, and we're asking them to make a decision. Once that's done is when we officially submit our modification request. And again, that's when we will officially say what our volume of transfer needs will be. After that process, in public hearing, there will be an EMC determination on that IBT modification.
Sure.
Through the process, we have to notify folks in both the source basin and the receiving basin. Every county you see in blue was notified. We sent over 340 letters, I believe, and emails, as well as published in 40 newspapers in this whole region. The red highlighted basin, like I said, the darker highlighted hatched basin is the receiving basin. That's the Rocky River. There goes to the west in that basin, all the way down into the Indian River, South Carolina. We notified local units of government of water supply systems, folks that had water withdrawal transfers, IBT certificate holders, MPDS holders. We also notified the settlement agreement notification list and other stakeholders, NGOs, keepers, COGS, tribal governments, and the like. So we have looked at a few alternatives. Again, these are very preliminary concept level, just to determine should we go forward and pursue an IBT modification. Some of the things that we looked at were pumping wastewater back from, that goes across the ridge into the Rocky River, back across into the Catawba Basin. We looked at water reuse options. Water reuse is where you take wastewater effluent, you treat it to a higher standard, and you use that water for non-potable uses. The concept is that if you do that, it offsets potable use from things like irrigation, water from cooling towers, things like that. We look for a new source in the Yankton Basin, similar to what happened in Union County, where they built an intake and treatment plant from the Yankton River. We considered that at a very concept level as an alternative. And we compared those to the process for an IBT. The evaluation criteria that has to be looked at for these alternatives are capital costs, schedule, O&M costs, benefits and risk, environmental factors, construction feasibility. We are looking for folks like you to give us actionable alternatives that we should scope in our EIS to be considered. And so that we can further refine and make that a very robust document that we considered all alternatives before we made the request. So, Angela, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ron. And so. Oh, wait a moment. Okay, we're okay. All right. So how can you participate and comment and learn about our modification requests? The first thing is attend public meetings. We will have another meeting here in Pickering. There will be another meeting. And one thing that would help us is that if there are any ideas about bigger, we heard comments about the venue and the venue size. Yes. So, and so again, we take that, and so the next meeting, we want to be in a larger facility, and we're gonna do that. But the way to participate, again, is to attend any of the meetings that we have. Also, we have Charlotte Water, IBT.org. That is a website that we stood up. It's going to have a copy of this presentation. It will also have a recording of this meeting and other meetings. We're also going to keep a log of questions and comments. Again, as Harold has stated and Ron has stated, your comments will inform, right, the environmental impact statement and study. Okay, so we're making it transparent for all locations and for anybody in the world who wants to look at this process here. It is Charlotte Water, IBT.org. It's already up and we've already stood it up. Also, there's another form you can use if you prefer to email. It is ibtproject@charlottesc.gov. And so we have someone who is monitoring that actual email box. And again, it will be part of the transparency that we're going to have in this process. All right, so you got to attend public meetings. You got also keeping up with everything that's going on in North and South Carolina on the website. Presentations will be on the website. The virtual meetings will be on the website. So again, we're being as transparent and open as possible. You can also comment on the draft EIS during the public comment period to North Carolina DEQ. Okay, and that's Harold's group. So you have the opportunity to comment also, and that goes to DEQ. You can also comment at the EMC, the Environmental Management Commission hearing. So there's an opportunity for you to comment there. Again, all of those methods to comment, to provide input, to ask questions are here.
Can we do that now or?
Yeah.
Yes, you can,
Yes, ma'am.
absolutely,
But let me, real quick,
yes.
as far as the venue, I found out, I'm city manager of the city of Hickory, I found out weeks ago that they were proposing to have this meeting here. I called Charlotte Water, I said, it's not gonna be big enough, there's not enough parking, we got construction out front, we've got the church service next door, we will give you a larger venue. And called me and said, no, we're just gonna go forward with what we got. This was weeks ago. So they had an opportunity, people wouldn't have to be standing and uncomfortable. So I just want to get you in here. And this is not us.
Well, and, yeah. And let me tell you about new venue and change. Okay. And we can be respectful. I mean, you know, respect goes both ways. The 30-day notification we are required. Okay, 30-day notification we are required. All right, so again, we're trying to abide by the regulatory requirements that there has to be a 30-day public registered advertisement for this meeting. And so we would do that, we would do that.
Follow it prior to the 30 days. Get a recommendation on the bill.
Well, and that's what we need to approve on. We have folks working on our behalf, and we'll take that. And we said we'll have another.
It's just being practical.
Yeah,
Let's try to be practical. I know there's a lot of regulations and all that.
it
Let's be
is.
practical.
It is. It is.
So,
It is. And again, hey, we said, hey, we're gonna have another meeting. Right, we said that, and we'll have, now look, and it'll have to be at least 30 days, because it has to be registered. So we're gonna say,
You said this most would be Q and A, and so far it's you.
yeah, okay, well, we're about done, we're about done, and we do this. We get out at 8, we get out at 8, we get out at 8. Okay, and then we'll go to public meetings, and then we'll recognize you, okay? All right.
Do you have a date on that environmental, go back to that slide, please. Right there, the environmental management petition hearing,
We don't, because we're not that far, we are early on.
30 days.
We are early. We're early.
that'll be.
We're for 30 days notice.
Yeah.
We anticipate EMC being, January around 2026.
It's that.
Okay.
Okay, so we're very early on, we're very early on in this process, there's ample opportunity for you.
All
Okay.
right, late 2026 is what's estimated on the screen, so.
Yeah, okay. Let's keep moving back to public meetings. All right, so again, these are the meetings that are firmed up for the North Carolina side. All right, we will add an additional meeting that'll be here in Hickory. No intent to slide anyone, but being very open and transparent about it, all right? All right, next one.
Say, I'm Hank, yes, I'm the mayor of the city of Hickory. I just want to go, I'm in involved with everything like that. I just want to say a couple quick things. We want everybody to be respectful of our district, whether, no matter what the case is, okay? That's the only thing I would ask is that everybody be respectful, no matter what the case is. But having said that, I'll say this, you've got a lot of folks in this room, you've got a lot of elected officials, you've got a lot of different folks from different counties. We want everybody to be active and involved in this process, and as we said, this process is just now getting started. So it is comforting to see this many folks participating and this many folks interested. I'll just say one quick thing, and I'll turn it over. I think the county manager was very thoughtful, so they can comment right quick. I'll let her be able to do that as well. But the city of Hickory stands on this, that we're going to do everything we can to oppose this operation.
As Mary guy said, my name is Mary Furtado, I'm the county manager. And I actually have questions, so I have two questions. First, would like some clarification. It was stated earlier that there's no specific number of IBTs that are closed. And it was stated that there was a presentation this morning to the EMC about this topic. And in the presentation that was given this morning, there is a proposal for a 30 million gallon expansion. Those two things don't sync. In the interest of transparency, I would appreciate some clarification.
Sure. Fine, want to go first?
I want to speak to that first, and I'll hand it over to Ron.
Harold, can you speak up, please?
Okay, try to stick it a little bit. Yeah, so I gave that presentation this morning to the Water Allocation Committee at DMC. And so the number that we're working from is 63 million gallons a day. That's the number that, when you do a notice of intent, and you present to the Environmental Management Commission, you need to have something, some number, so they can have some scale of what they're dealing with.
So is that an arbitrary number?
That number was provided by Charlotte Water. I do not believe it was arbitrary. That's, I wanted to caveat here, make it clear that there will be a deep dive into that number. This is the way Interbasin transfers kind of all the way forward. There's a deep dive into that number during the purpose and need part of the environmental impact statement. So that number will be responded. But that is a number that is a guidance number.
So what is the capacity of the Catawba River on a daily basis to help us know? You asking for 50%, 80%, what is the capacity?
There'll be an environmental impact statement that will go into what the impacts of moving that water.
Thank you. So my second question has to do with the evaluation of alternatives and the various criteria for that. Are the results of that evaluation of alternatives on the table?
There are concept notes. There's been no official document produced to submit with our notice of intent. But it is a tech memo, I believe. We have our consultants here with us, and we can make that publicly available on our website. So be glad to do that. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. This gentleman over here had his hand up.
Okay.
Hey, Warren, can you guys set up a meeting at LR somewhere bigger than this without them? So that we can have a conversation logistically and go through it, whether we need to, our attorneys, and let's go through all of our concerns. Offline, not here, not in a hurry, that kind of thing. Can you guys set that up, put it out online? So
I think.
So answer his question.
Well, I just,
Yeah.
I represent Jay Adams, I represent the 96th district, which is the upper part. I just want to let y'all know that you have a big team already working on this. When I got word of it, I immediately talked to Representative Setzer. I know that Senator Daniels was involved. I know that the county manager was in Caldwell, in Catawba, Burke. There's going to be a big thing. It's not just Hickory. It's the whole river system. There's a lot for us to learn. This is the kickoff. We're just starting out. They're going to give us their alternatives. We're going to create some alternatives for them.
Yeah.
You know, long way on this. I want to thank you for being there every last one. I really do appreciate this because we've been working really hard on this, and it's always good to know that you're behind us. There's a lot to learn. I grew up in Cabarrus County.
I was on the 1998 retirement summit in Mecklenburg County and 14 other counties. I was involved in the 2002 IBT. I know all about the Kannapolis research part that was about. So we don't have to relearn this. We're well prepared for this. I just want y'all to know that. I know you're upset. I'm upset. This did not start off well. We're gonna have our own side of this, and they'll have theirs, but we have to walk.
The national situation. It's my understanding that it's 33 million gallons plus another 10 million that was allocated for Concord and Kannapolis back in 2007. So currently it's up to 43 million. Is that correct?
I'm not gonna validate those numbers at this point in time. I've already started my filers. I've got some information. It's not complete at this point in time, but you're right. 2002, there was an IBT that was modified in 2007. And we're seeing it again. One thing that was missing from their presentation today is why do they need an interbasin trade? This in the back door, I just stand back there. So my name is Jerry Hodge. I'm the mayor of Newton. Newton is the second most populated city in Catawba County. Has over 13,000 residents. Last night at our council meeting, our council voted unanimously to oppose the transfer or to oppose the request for transfer of water to the basin. So Newton is on board with this. Municipalities in Catawba County, I think we'll all be able to do it. Thank you.
Morganton, North Carolina, Councilman Jerry, we voted last night for motion to do it. Wait.
It would say it wasn't.
Oh, yes, they're all opposed to it.
Joe, Cage's Mountain did vote on it last night and we were opposed also.
We voted 99. Our water vote. Maybe it's not about money, but I have a hard time believing
And we have some microphones out in the, who is manning a microphone? Okay, so if you may want to, Jay, if you can come out here. Okay. All right.
From Morganton, and I'm representing over Lake James mega site that they're trying to build right across on the Catawba River. And I want to say something to everybody who is here, who's going to be impacted by this. If they put a battery lithium plant along the Catawba River, which is what our politicians in Morganton and Burke County are planning, we're going to all have contaminated water because it's going to go to 26 counties south of Burke County. So I want you all to go to Stop the Burke Lake James mega site. Because if you're all interested in clean water, it's going to affect your wells, it's going to contaminate everything all the way south. So a lot of you don't know about it, but this is the time to talk to your council members and your government here. Yeah.
So just a question, I forget your title.
I'm here, the water supply development.
Water supply development. So since 2002, since the IBT was originally set up, what's been the increase in demand for the Charlotte metro area percentage-wise?
That would really be a better question.
Okay, so you know that they were talking from 2002 to 2024, what percentage increases were what done?
I don't have that number.
No, I'm just talking about it's that everybody in the community.
The projection, that's the gray line is the average day. The blue line is the peak day. And that's just the transfer.
Just the trade, I'm talking about the demand.
The overall demand, I couldn't venture it.
Yes, I mean, it's some, like, maybe a number on there, as well as what the demand is for the city of Hickory and the Hickory metro area. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, if you also submit that group, then there's an electronic record of that. Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
All right, meeting the statute. He did it off there, because I'm trying to ask a question. Okay, really long, is what the average increase, or the overall increase in average water consumption demand in the Hickory metropolitan area, in 2024, relate that to Charlotte, and I think that we would have a pretty good understanding as far as what the need is, but if that makes sense, I think it did. Okay, perfect.
I want to make sure we had a record of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
My name is Jeff Morris, I'm a retired city manager of the Valleys. I also served about 8 years on the Environmental Management Commission. And the question I'd like to ask this evening to Charlotte is that as a former member of the EMC, the IBT that they're going to consider, a lot of weight's going to be given to that environmental impact statement. In fact, that's what they'll base their decision on. Charlotte will be using their consultants to prepare that EIS. Will Charlotte pay for us to do our own EIS, which you all helped on? You're putting us in this position. I'm just looking at really willing to carry the cost for us to hire only independent consultants to present an EIS that is independent from the EIS you'll be submitting to the state.
That's a really good question. You know, everybody that works for a city understands, how the funds are generated locally. And so when you spend those funds for non-local purposes, then that's where folks like our attorney here start, questioning it. I would say the Catawba Water Read, we talked about stakeholder process. The Catawba Water Read is going to be a key stakeholder. So, is there a scenario that they could, through this, water supply master plan, the integrated water resources plan that they're developing, could they, assist in some of those questions that you're asking? I think that might be a better avenue than us sitting here, promoting that Charlotte could pay for something like that. Thank you. Yes.
My question goes back to one that was asked earlier. And the earlier question was, you had a drawing up here to show what you pull out in the reading that I said with you. I think the big question for us is what's coming into the pipe? How many gallons? How many millions of gallons a day are coming down that pipe? And all the towns above that have plans for expansion as well, population growth. They're going to pull more out. That number is going to become less and less. So the question is how much more are you asking to pull out of that pipe? And I heard you say, you don't know. I think that's a problem.
So what I'm trying to represent is our average debt. So 117 million gallons is what we average every problem. That doesn't mean that that is at our capacity. We have intakes that can be drawable. Again, in the summertime, our lowest demand probably did down into the 90s. Our historic peak day across the system happened in 2007, right before the major drought, and 169 million. We haven't seen a day like that since that time. We have been in the 150s, but that gives you the range of where Charlotte is on a daily basis here over the last 5 years.
I was kind of involved in 2006 when this came up. And, when we discovered late in the process that Charlotte actually had an alternative in the Yadkin River. They could have bought 30 million gallons if they wanted. They could have gotten it from the Yadkin River rather than the Catawba River. And we didn't find out very, very late. And they could have gotten it cheaper from the Yadkin River than the Catawba River. So I just learned they really explored alternate sources for this water. And the second thing is, in 2006, 2007, we convinced the EMC that this IBT was bad for Catawba River. Well, Charlotte has grown a lot since then, and a lot of that growth has been in the Catawba Basin. So they've taken their share and they're taking more, and now they want even more.
In the back, Angela in the back. Go ahead, sorry, in the back.
My name is Jeff McGain, from Morgan and represent Lake James. And our interest in, for public records, the question that I have is, what will be the criteria of demand that you will take out and when you will stop taking out? Would it be lake levels? Would it be river flow? What are those criteria? What are those metrics going to be that are going to quantify whether or not you can take water or you should take water or you care about that? And I have a question.
So, I think what you're speaking to is.
Oh, sorry.
How about now?
Yeah.
Okay, I think what you're speaking to is what happens during more drought-like conditions, you have flows. As a member of the Catawba Water Management Group, every utility member, there's 18 of us. A lot of the folks are in the room. We have to comply with the Catawba Water underflow protocol, which means if the river levels trips and triggers to reservoir elevation, drought conditions, groundwater is considered, if it's all going trending downwards, then it triggers you into a stage of drought, which means you start implementing calls for conservation. And there's 5 stages. We can make that available on our website, but every member of the Catawba Water, no matter where the drought is, North South Carolina, along the river bank, complies with that request.
We were there last year when we had.
Okay, and then my second question, the EMC that will be making this decision, I'd like to know where the funding comes from for that EMC and how much of that funding comes from Charlotte or Mecklenburg County.
Who makes up the 15 members?
And I'll wait for an answer on that one.
Sure, I'll address the EMC. So the EMC are appointed members, I believe now it's 8 are appointed from the General Assembly and 7 are appointed from the governor. I believe that things have changed a little bit, just recently, but, they're appointed, they serve voluntarily in the state, they are professionals across the state. And yeah, professionals across the state serving in individual roles. The statute defines, that they have, there's a professional engineer, there's a doctor, throughout, but they work on a voluntary basis, serve the state, and DEQ works as their staff, effectively.
Just to make sure everybody kind of understands how we're gonna do the mic going forward, I'm gonna try to do it in a circular motion, this side, and the back, so I can kind of make sure everybody gets an opportunity. So just be mindful of that.
Jack Chandler, Catawba County, Lincoln County resident. I see on the slides you have up there right now, your discharge is 15 million gallons per day. You said you were expanding that. What are you expanding to?
The facility that we own and operate in Mecklenburg County, where this discharges to the Rocky River, is currently 13 million gallons a day. 2 years from now, we'll be at 16 million gallons a day. And then we partner with the Water and Sewer Authority of Harris County. They have a Rocky River Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. That plant's going under construction, currently, and in a couple of years, it will be at 34 million gallons a day. We only have a contract capacity in that plant up to 9 million. So if you add those two together, our discharge capacity into the Rocky River would be, what's that, 25 million.
So part of that discharge is Charlotte Water making money on through your partnership with, the other community.
We actually paid them to treat our wastewater.
Question for the state. How will the assimilative capacity for the wastewater discharges upstream of Charlotte be affected by further withdrawals in Charlotte?
That should be a question that is looked at in the guidance. I certainly would need to talk about it. I would have to be evaluated in the
Just off the top of your head, do you think that that would impact those discharge levels upstream?
I'm really hesitating to say until I saw the problem.
How will we know when the draft EIS is available for review?
That will be, so it'll go to the state hearing now. There will be at least one public hearing, on that, and then that will be noticed, similar to how this was noticed.
My name is Doug Michaels. I reside in West Chapel community along with IBT. I've got a few statements.
Close your ear now.
It's on.
No.
It's on. Okay. Go ahead. Good. My name is Doug Michaels. I reside in West Chapel community along with IBT. I have a few statements along with a few questions. I want to start off with, once these IBTs are approved, are they ever reduced?
Your chapters ever go so in the time I've been there, it's not been doing this for was 15 years now. No, there, the PEC has not gone back and reduced the certificate.
So a few statements I have. We frequent a lot of local businesses, the industry I'm in, I believe in supporting local businesses. Hickory was just recently voted in the last year or so, #1 city to move to in the United States. A lot of those reasons were, of course, our recreation, our food scene, affordable housing such as that. We've also done a lot to support that in like developing the river. The river and the lake is very important to that river wall, because we spend a lot of money to develop it. Also, we're talking about a finite resource in our community. It's all dependent on the tributaries that feed it, the rainwater, and the geography to drain into the lake. That's a finite resource that we have today in our own community. It's a source of recreation, it's a source of industry and jobs. If we give our water away and we have industries that want to move to our area and we cannot support it through our water systems, then the jobs are going to go elsewhere, the industry is going to go elsewhere, the people moving to the community are going to go elsewhere. How much does Charlotte contribute to our local economy and our tax base? It does not. We have to create our own. Charlotte is not contributing to that. It also contributes to our agriculture. It has not been too long ago that the river basin, actually the Colorado River itself, was going and did endanger the river systems. We've done a lot to bring that back up and protect our river. And I think that's about all of mine, but like I said, mainly statements, I was interested in the IBT, actually coming back today. Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Anthony Strong, the executive director for Western Piedmont Council of Governments, and we represent the local governments in our kind of work with all local Piedmont County. Like I said, I'm not aware of any of our local governments that support this, whether it's law. You've mentioned it with all the water management group a number of times tonight, but speaking of the leadership of that group is not aware of this request at all, only until recent weeks, and that's the group's water supply planning in the region. So a couple of questions I have for you. The water supply plan that you mentioned a couple of times, what were the recommendations in that plan that decided whether the recommendations to eliminate IBTs as a strategy to prevent further drought implications? The second one is that it projected that the IBT in Charlotte currently has to be sufficient through 2065. So can you talk about the growth factors that are affecting this? The tribal water readings have been aware of this request since June. I presented to the board second Tuesday in January. I presented to basically the same presentation that you saw tonight. I presented in February to the full membership. Some of the members are here to confirm that. And so, I presented to the YAC and PD data that I did last month. So we covered the water management groups in both basins today before really meetings were set other than the YAC. To speak to your the IBT, I think what you're referring to is in the appendix H of the FERC relicensing, the comprehensive relicensing agreement that you had a stakeholder process to agree to. And what I would tell you is that predicted some IBT. That model has been updated by the management group. It included additional IBT. It included factors of growth. It includes climate change. The most water use on the Catawba River Basin, the most water loss in the Catawba Basin naturally occurs through evaporation. And so that factors in power uses, that factors in all the unit uses that we perform in utilities. So, that is a very robust plan. I would encourage you all to engage in our stakeholder process. The Catawba Water Management Group will be at the table, and they can unveil the scenarios and the modeling and prescribe what IBT requests are being planned for over the next 50 years across the basin.
Does that take environmental warming into consideration?
Well, my name is Richard Womenstein. My wife, Carmen, I live in Caldwell County, in Crystal Falls subdivision. I'm wondering, is Duke Power represented here tonight? Is there any authorities from that company? And what is their take on this proposal? Because I would imagine that you have reduced flow, it cuts down on power generation and will affect their profits too. So, is there any position I do power on this? Good one. Yeah.
I do not see anyone from Duke Power that I'm aware of to speak or represent to them. I think there was a request by a local paper in Morganton that gave that to Duke about your question to them. And we can provide that on the website. They're sure about it.
I'll look to that answer. I've been communicating with a couple of colleagues at Duke Power on this. So they are well aware of the project, and they are very interested in seeing The EIS document.
I'm Carolyn Hightower. I'm a resident in the Grand Falls area. We have a home on the lake. I've also spent my last 35 years as a professional strategic plan. So I have two comments, one related to water conservation, the other related to methodology and some stats and numbers. If you look at the projected growth that you've outlined using the 63 million from the 33 million, that's a 90.1% increase. If you look at the projected population gain from North Carolina data systems, during from now until 2050, they're showing only 53.4% increase in the population. So that raises questions right there. The other is the rate of consumption. And if you look at the rate of consumption from 2020 to 2024 during the study, from 17.74 to 20.42, that is a 15% increase. In that same time period, the numbers show that the Mecklenburg County population growth is 5.9%. Your trend lines are a straight trend line. I would like to see that you are doing scenario planning in which those you don't always assume straight trend line. And I think the other thing that's critical is what are you doing to instill water conservation? It is a finite resource.
Those are all good points, ma'am. We don't prescribe to that our information captures all the things that you said. I think there are excellent points that we need to consider as we develop the environmental documents. We try to look at a trend to figure out, again, we're proactive planners. When we get to 80% of something, of capacity of anything in Charlotte Water, we're looking at what's next. How do we manage through that? So, great. So it's a freedom process. And so we just need to be mindful of, there's a lot of data that we don't have yet. And we're looking for feedback like this as we go into our process. Yes, sir.
I'm Dave Shirkus, I'm a resident Creek, and I just want to add additional information that you mentioned. Duke Authority, they control water rights of all of these lakes, which are really reservoirs.
Yes.
And I'm really surprised that they don't have someone present here, but I would recommend that you insist that they participate in these conversations.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Freeman. I'm the city council member of this area board. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Riverview Library staff and those who helped to somehow to become actively prepared to host this meeting. I've been taught, there's two things. I've been taught that when a person does something intentional, you don't call them out on it, they'll do it again. And so I want to say, I think it was unfair realizing that you guys knew about this venue and you knew intentionally you wanted to curb the crowd and you wanted to make it as inconvenient as possible. So I want to call that out on you guys, whether it's you, the supervisor, but I want to say thank you to the Riverview community. Second of all, second of all, just to put it in the most simplest terms, you want to take water and not put it back. So why can't you put it back? Would that cost you guys money? And that's my last question. I gotta get out of here because I got money stuff.
This is a study. Sir, that is an alternative that we considered, and yes, there is a cost to it. We can share that. The information on the website.
It's not the website.
She's just going to some people that all my history. Because I've spent a lot of time making phone calls to various, institutions like, Charlotte Water in and around the state, trying to figure out how this all works. Like with Duke Power and how they're involved, you know, the environmental agencies and all stuff. And I think it's amazing. When we see they don't have any data on this, like, if you guys to present this to communities and not like, I was gonna ask you about desalinization plants, for instance. And you guys can't, we're all locals here, and we can't, we don't need data. So that's pretty shocking. But anyway, last time I called these agencies was, about 6 months ago. And I asked a simple question because I noticed there are, for instance, a bunch of dredging companies on Lake Martin. Right? What does dredging do? For lack of a better term, it makes the bucket larger. Right? So it's impossible to get dredged on Hickory. Lake James is natural, but it hasn't been ruined yet by some battery screw. But I hope that doesn't happen out there. Because there's millions of people that rely on our water, obviously. But there's also a reason why some of us moved upstream, Charlotte. You know, I have an office in Charlotte, and I go there as little as possible. No offense to those who live, but I've seen it for the last 20 years, and it is going down fast. It's amazing. Anyway, my question is, if we want to request how many millions of gallons of water, I know at least a dozen coves where friends live in Lake Hickory, that you could flip a switch and find those millions of gallons in a couple of coves by allowing dredging. Like, you know, as long as we do it off, you know, fish breeding season and all that, I get that, but pull the ripcord, pull the Band-Aid off. And then let's get some new data. Oh my God, we just generated millions and millions of gallons by dredging some coves in Hickory. Imagine that. And like just obvious stuff, make the bucket larger, and then let's reevaluate. But this is, by the way, that was really, anyway, so listen to both, you have to listen to both of those presentations. And by the way, a half hour late because we were delayed for some reasons. I know the traffic getting out of Charlotte sucks together. Well, you know, we don't need that. What we need is data because we've got some smart people in this room. I've actually this has been an honor to listen to this. I mean, there's some fine octane brain power in here, and if we don't get presented by this like equal high octane brain power and cut to the chase, it's going to get real sad real quick. And then, like our mayor said, it ain't happening for you unless you sell us on it. And this is an awful person that would sell me. Cheers.
Good evening. My name is Ashton Wooten. I'm with the Dow County Manager. The Dow County Board of Commissioners met today to vote against the request. I'll say it close to all, just to get that out of the way. If you don't know McDowell County, I hope you can check that out. We're in the headwaters of the Catawba River. Catawba Falls was reopened later this month. Hope you can check that out as well. It's pristine, borderline, and the folks like Catawba River Keeper to do better by the vulnerable in our community and know the same with everyone else, including Charlotte. So appreciate the opportunity as a public servant. I've been there where you guys also understand, but again, please take these comments seriously. We will be sending budget content back. I appreciate what's going people are reading as well. For that information, we're going to take you back. So thank you.
I'm going to interrupt the mayor communication members. And early on, I heard a question asked that I thought would have been good to have known going into this. You know, and that's what's the water capacity or what would be drawn out of the Catawba River as it is present.
Nobody seems to know. And now, when it's talked about respect early on, I kind of feel disrespected in the fact that now they want to go up to take the 63 million gallons away from us and not knowing what impact it's going to have on us and not sounding like they really care. So, it's, I just think this is all about what Charlotte wants.
Yes.
And, if we're gonna be fair about this and talk about the impact it's going to have on Charlotte, let's hear about the impact it's going to have on us, because we're in growing area ourselves.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Todd Bell, and I'm with Lake District Environmental Association. We're going to participate second weekend in the this question is more rhetorical for Harold, but back in 2007, the Concord IBT came up. And a lot of people, and by the way, the first meeting for that one was here in Hickory. 4 people showed up. That's the what difference between 2007 and 2004. In that, they were asking for 36 million gallons. It was reduced after everybody reacted to it, got the EPA involved, brought it down to 10 million. So 30 million now, I guess it's a rhetorical question to ask EMC. What has changed since 2007? Now in 2024, it would be okay to take 30 million back out, when we took 26 million gallons down back then. So that should be the opening question. What has changed that it's okay to take that much water out? Yeah, so that 30 inch condition, and that's the number. There were, as a guy who were working on, that's been floated out there to the EMC. The EMC has not approved that. If the EMC, they reduced that, the Concord Gap. And that, it predates my time, but, I hear stories about how you can be more than 4 people. Later on, a little later on, exactly. And I just want to know why he.
Why Hickory? We had to, part of the regulations is that you have to have public meetings above the withdrawal, below the withdrawal in the source basin, and you have to have one in the receiving basin. So that's why we picked Hickory, we're picking Camden, South Carolina, and we're picking Albemarle. We have a meeting tomorrow night in Charlotte. And then there will be a 4th meeting, 5th meeting in Florence, South Carolina.
And the risk of sounding like some tent evangelist, I want to know which one in this room has a pipeline to God's ear. The reason I say that is because this water that you're talking about, this 33 million gallons, ultimately has to come from rainfalls. Because you're taking that out as a net consumption. That means it's coming from Lake James and the tributaries that supply Lake James. By way of Lake Roadhead, by way of Lake Hickory, by way of Lookout Shoals, and then it gets to your monster lake in Charlotte. But the fact of the matter is, it all goes downstream, except what is replaced by rainfall. So unless rainfall increases by that 33 billion gallons a day, the lake levels are going to have to drop. That's the bottom line, right? And it is now, our lake levels are lower than they should be. Not necessarily the water surface is lower, but the shore at the bottom is filling up because of more land management around the lake is allowing the coast to fill in. So it's a multifaceted problem. But the bottom line is that because we're upstream and all this return water is going into another river somewhere, why don't they put the switch and take it out of the other river and put it back into the other lane?
Yeah.
That's my comment. Thank you.
Considering how far in advance you have planned out, or you're planning out this transfer request, with the expectation that it will go through over the course of 4 years. Not being an expert, my understanding is that one of the easiest ways to control water conservation is by regulating non-essential uses. Things like use of lawns to golf courses, things of that nature. What avenues by Charlotte already considered to regulate its own use of water capable of reaching into areas?
So that's a good question. I mentioned the reuse. We have a reuse system. We provide treated effluent, which is what's discharged to the creek. From our facility, with discharge to the Rocky River. It serves irrigation for a local golf course. We've done a recent contract with UNC Charlotte to take up to 2 million gallons of water per day to use in their cooling system and irrigate athletic fields. That would replace the potable and drinking water use. That would ultimately reduce the IBT amount overall. We have evaluated looking at how to expand that system. It's a lot of a process and capital dollars, but it's an alternative. It's all the concept list for us to evaluate. We're looking at other, we talk about non-essential uses. We're also looking at water loss. Every utility system leaks water out of their system. Pipes leak, valves leak, all those things. We've done it at the top of water read, along with every member has done a water audit. We know how much leakage there is in the system, and we're all trying to work together on ways to reduce that leakage across the whole utility system in the West. So those are just a few ideas. We're looking for other good ideas to incorporate in our evaluation.
I think that, one of the things that struck me was that from the outset, you said you didn't have an number. And then immediately you were called out for having an estimate number. I think in the future, you might want to fix that when you go downstream and talk. But I have a question for the state. So in drought condition, the folks that have already shown us they're a little disingenuous about numbers. Who has the teeth to force them not to do that? I understand there's an agreement between the parties up and downstream, but who can come in and enforce that if, they have the right to the capacity to take 66 billion or a million gallons? Who can put the stops to that? Who can turn that dial outside of Charlotte and enforce that policy?
Yeah, so, right now, Charlotte has to submit an annual monitoring report. We post those up online, along with all the other IBT certificate holders. And so, if they demonstrate in that report that they're exceeding that limit, that threshold limit, then the state is gonna come along and say, it's time to either get a new certificate or start sending water back to the results. Resolve that issue is what we will do. Now, we do have other ways. There's local water supply plans. There's other ways that we look at and evaluate, how the monitoring plans, those numbers that they're sending to us are reasonable. Certainly, they're gonna have much more refined, detailed numbers, but through our local water supply plan program, we can get a general sense that those numbers appear to be reasonable, and we do check that.
So it's further down the line, there's a report that comes out and tells us that we got hosed in this drought.
Yeah, so when the system gets, it's all policy, but the system hits 80% of their allowed capacity, that's when, that is, we're talking to them before then, but certainly 80%, we're telling them you have to have a plan. Now, you have, once you're at 8% of that capacity for IBT limit threshold, you have to present us with a plan as to how we're going to resolve this issue. When you hit 90%, you have to implement the plan.
Is that self-reported?
Yes.
It's like you're trying to get my starting number, reporting that they're at 80%.
Well, we will make an annual monitoring question.
Right. I get it.
I realize that.
Self-reported. Yes. Somebody from Charlotte's watching it.
And thank you guys for doing that. Thanks for coming. So I've got a question about the environmental impact assessment you guys are gonna provide. So is that gonna be a qualification based proposal request, or is it gonna be a proposal request, or is that gonna be issued through Mecklenburg County? How's that gonna be issued? There's some local companies that I believe might be interested in helping provide qualifications that are more than qualified to help that work. Or is that strictly funded through DET? How's that gonna go?
From Charlotte's perspective, we have a consultant that we solicited proposals from, and they've been helping us. And the way I look at this, it's been a project to develop some concepts to determine if we need to apply for an IBT modification. But it's now turned into a process, and EIS is going to be required to be signed up for that.
Is that gonna interrupt that process where it's gonna have to be solicited again?
It's
Or you can go retain that? I mean, is that legally possible?
it's a potential that we may have to go out to market and beat
I
that.
believe you'll have to.
I'm from the same perspective, so the applicant produced this EIS document, is submitted to the Department of Environmental Quality. We review that document internally, and then once we're comfortable with it going out to, all the stakeholder group, the public, agencies, then it goes out for their comments. That finished up, we ended up writing what's called a record of decision. We call it ROD. That point, that document really becomes DEQ's document. Because we are making a decision on that document.
Document is and what that entails. But I'm asking, like, as you're going through sequential of different processes of this project, you know, typically you're gonna break a threshold to where you have to solicit that. You have to, you might want to use the same consultant, but yeah, I get it, I understand, I'm a consultant. So fair is fair, but I'm just asking, at some point, you're not gonna be able to retain that same person perpetually without having other people come to the table and have different opinions, or B, different qualifications that might supersede the you don't have hires.
No, we understand your point, and we will make that determination based upon our procurement.
Did you get the next, or does the state get the next? Because I thought this was in the state.
Charlotte Water develops the EIS, excuse me, that gets turned over to DEQ.
It's directed, it's fully funded by Mecklenburg County.
It's fully funded by Charlotte Water and Rate Savings.
As an independent from Mecklenburg County.
That's correct.
Someone.
In the event we have a drought and it happens like in May. In the event that we have a drought, we have it in May, the report doesn't come out until the end of the year, it's only an annual report. How do we stop guys from getting our water if we were in the middle of a drought? We don't. We don't.
You pick your boat up and drown.
Yeah, so what do you guys have, because I don't think we're fair if that result comes out on an annual basis, or have to have a way to stop you guys.
What I would offer you is the low new flow protocol that I mentioned. If the reservoir level dips below 95%, if the groundwater monitoring network is dropping, if the drought monitor indicates that a drought is present in the area of the Potomac Watery Basin, any area in northern South Carolina, all the utilities go into a conservation effort. It goes from stage 0, which is, drought conditions are present. It goes all the way up to stage 5, which is an extreme drought, and that's where we're rationing water to make sure everybody has available water. The report that you're mentioning is on IBT. We have to report to the state DEQ Bureau's office annually about what our heat day was for the year. And so we keep that report. We have to report on every year. Once we exceed 80%, the reporting requirements increase. And so I think they go to semi-annually report that.
Angela, you have a question right here. I'll get you, then you.
It's Charles.
That's not you. Take care of
You said I mentioned the term transparency. Yes, sir.
You were using the term transparency about 10 times. But if you're really being transparent about all this, where's WBTV, where's Channel 9, where's Charlotte? My daughter works for City of Hickory, and they tried to get you to put that big reflection on the huge. And here's the other question, I go with that. Our newspapers, nothing in newspapers about, you know, our local newspapers, nothing. We found out about it Sunday night. And here we are at 5:30, and then we have to wait on another 45 minutes, now you get the weather stuff. So you talk about transparency, you certainly aren't giving transparency to us. Besides, I'm from my field, I live on that castle, I've been down there for 25 years. Every morning when I walk out, I get out of bed, and look at the water there. I've been doing that for the last 4 years. Every year, especially during prime time, voting season, fishing season, and all that, water level is down, and it's not because of the rain. But I just want everybody to be aware of that, just think much over the water all the rain. They're wrong, we're going to get something else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comment.
Question, so all these proportion thresholds and that kind of thing that happens after the fact, are those according to the audited by independent auditors? And the other thing, quick question, since we had to submit emails on the sign-in sheet, will we receive the minutes via an email back? Will we go into the database, or do we have to access this information?
Okay, everything, are you talking about the meeting contents or all of the presentations, everything we have will be on that solid water IBT.
So we can actually.
Yeah, we still have that website, so everyone, can get information.
What about?
Are these results of all these reports that you're talking about that happens after the fact as far as thresholds and water usage and that kind of thing, are those open to an independent audit?
If there is public information.
He's asking actually, for the third party, but then verify the
When the third party actually verifies.
Yes.
It goes to the state and if they're third party, we'll take that.
All the monitoring reports are available on the website. I don't have the address, when you Google the ACT tools, so IBT, you're finding the Charlotte water page. Internally, we look through those numbers and see if there seem to be reasonable values, but as far as the third party audit, we don't. But it is publicly available.
Yeah, I'm saying again that you're withdrawing 117 million gallons a day. What is Charlotte Water's maximum permitted volume of withdrawal from the river basin? And a follow to that would be, should this IBT be approved, how much will that withdrawal permit be increased?
Our capacity of intake is tied to the FERC licensing and FERC license. Charlotte Water has a withdrawal capacity, how much at our intake we can take out of Mountain Island Lake. And on a one-day basis, we can take out 335 million. In Lake Norman, we can go up to, I think it's 180 million. So that's our total capacity to draw that we can serve the community with in Charlotte. At some point, in 100 years of more than we are not asking to increase the withdrawal capacity of our intakes at all. That would take a different process. That would take a purge involvement in that process. We have adequate capacity for foreseeable future to gain access to water.
Think of it, the gentleman over there, in the gray, did you have? Did you have comments? Okay.
Quick question, community owners on land, right, of your, this region, county region. And I'm just wondering, has Charlotte Water thought about reaching out to those local governments that you are serving and talking about growth management strategies and policies and plans and procedures? Because that is a proactive approach in order to control growth and manage and conserve water. So what have you done to make that happen?
I know that there have been conversations with other governments in the Charlotte region. Also, you also talked to some other municipalities in terms of co-application for the modification. So there's a lot of coordination that occurs regionally. And you're correct. It's about, right? And what we're doing here is about the pre-planning or, what we think we need to do.
Well, what has been done up until this point with those local governments? What strategies have been put in place? Because there's been no conversation in our region about those strategies and how that goes down, the water goes down.
Okay.
So I'm trying to understand, even in your region.
Yeah, so I think what we can do is we'll take that question and we'll post and give you strategies. That's probably good.
Thank you.
Great question. Great question.
Yes, I have a question, and, the first question is, Charlotte Water doesn't always serve city Charlotte, because I understand it serves 7 municipalities locally. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, we serve all the tenants in Gray County also.
Okay. I have 2 questions. My next question is to the state, how will this IBT affect the set precedents with other counties east of Charlotte and Pershing? They can also affect us upstream. Off the cuff, I don't see it with set precedent. It's a good question. We consider. And my last statement is that the city manager understands a lot of this inconsistency. This is not a water issue. This is a budget issue. If you can come back across this possible limit. Yes. Anyone else?
I used to be a wildlife officer on these Lake James, Lake Rodias, Lake Hickory. And I've already seen in the last, and now I'm a resident of Lake Hickory, Big Lake, and I've already seen that a lot of the low levels that's coming down has been really affecting the spawning on the beach. That might be minute to you, but that's still very important to all the residents of this whole lake chain. And I was just wondering, are y'all gonna be working with the wildlife biologists to see really what kind of effect it will take on this lake chain if all this water is pulled off?
That will be a consideration in our environmental impact statement. Aquatic life will be a factor that has to be evaluated. It gets into something called secondary and cumulative impacts, and that will have to be determined and addressed in that statement. Thank you.
All right, I have one question and then one comment. And the question actually came from this gentleman, why can't you pull from the Rocky River?
Good question.
Yeah, the Rocky River, it's part of the alternatives analysis that we need to consider. The Rocky River is a much smaller water body, and can yield, kind of a similar story that everybody's kind of describing here. Can it yield a water supply and then handle the wastewater that comes back to it without causing effects to the aquatic life? To me, that's part of the study that will have to be evaluated. We're also looking at that would not require an IBT if that were to develop. If we were to go to the active river, tap it, build a plant, bring it in and treat the customers in the Rocky River Basin, that still requires an IBT.
And to that point, I know it would be probably not cost effective, but you could probably look at alternatives for all those river sources and do a combination instead of one big whole, right? And so I know that would be cost effective. I guess my other comment that I had is I'm a little disappointed. I came here tonight actually looking for data. Like, again, flow capacity, low flow capacity of the entire river chain. Also, every town along the way, every city along the way, what are they pulling? What are their growth strategies? What do they anticipate pulling? So, that's the kind of data and I would like to see, capacities and what percentages Charlotte is taking versus other cities and towns. And then just one comment that I have is I know Duke Energy, when they, renew their FERC licensing, they are required to do things to give back, such as build recreation areas and et cetera, along lakes and shorelines. So as we pull and we take from the river, every city and town, what are we giving back? Rhetorical question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. What I'll say on the data about the whole system, that's not something that Charlotte keeps. We obviously keep our numbers and our data. Every member of the top water grid has to develop a local water supply plan that projects out 50 years, I believe this Harold. And that's compared to all of the data that we generate to the state. The water supply master plan that I mentioned at the top of water grid's charge with developing is where you get that data. It ultimately tells what the overall yield of the top of river is, and it also has a forecast every member that given the top water grid, the local water supply plan to project out 50 years their water needs for their communities. And so all that plan takes all that together and it predicts an outcome. And what it predicts is how does it affect the reservoir levels? The model is everywhere the reservoir is like that. And so as it draws down, it gets to a critical level that the water doesn't go across to the next one. So it's measuring where those, what time if road and other water demands, and evaporation considers increase in temperature. So all those things are factored in when running scenarios, and it produces an outcome, and it tells which reservoir will have an impact that will evaporate out in the future if the water demands are going to be what they project. Yeah, but I would encourage you to be sure to check with the top water group that integrated water resources plan, which was the water master supply plan, will be on their website when it's finalized here in the next year. Does anyone want the microphone?
Will that information be available as part of, who's doing what and?
Yes, sir.
That's part of the plan.
That it is in the plan, and I can ask that group to make that more public for you. That
Yeah, I did a quick Google search.
right. It's being developed, so it's harder to answer.
Good afternoon. I just want to thank everybody for being here. I'm Margaret Beatty, County Commissioner, and Trump County President doing the search on property line. So I'm very familiar with all the requirements right there in the park, as well as what you guys are working to do And I'm very well at my name served on that board as well. Please send my regards to Charlotte Water. Wonderful guy. I think we've had a lot of good conversation. None of us are happy. So, we appreciate you taking this time, but I want to know, where can we find the answers to our questions, or the next time you come, or you want to have answers or some information at least? Because I think there have been more questions asked tonight than we got answers. So again, I appreciate everybody's wonderful, camaraderie, and it's amazing the talent we've had in this room, and I'm just so impressed that I'm in Cobb County and all the other counties here, and certainly on working with all of you throughout the region. Thank you again to everybody for this, but it's always a good conversation. It's good for us to know, and we're starting the process. So thank you, but I want to know where can we find our answers moving forward. Thank you.
Oh, the website, I hate to keep referring to that, but the website, we're capturing all the questions. We got like Joe's going to capture every question. The ones we can answer, we will answer, and we'll make sure that everybody's on the website. The ones we can't answer, obviously, that's about development of water supply right here. That's going to have some study work to deal. But you can at least see the question you asked, and if it hasn't answered, we're recording everything, both on virtual meeting as well as the documentation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we could go to some system. Gonna hand out, and there's a QR code. Again, everything will be kept there, all questions, all answers that we can provide. That's intention. And we want other citizens to see those as we go around the meeting. So that's the intention.
Any other folks, please microphone. All right, one last call in for the microphone.
We've got, I had that microphone in front of here.
No, I can hear you.
So I guess my question to you, would you consider the deed dire?
The dire for this request.
Yes.
We're getting close to a regulatory limit that, the further we go, the more contentious it gets. I'll say.
So my second one, is Charlotte City Council aware of this? Or
Yes.
do you have any idea why they're continuously pushing so hard to redo zoning to allow higher density and do away with single family homes when they know that their current infrastructure and soon infrastructure can't support it?
It's this question on behalf of the Charlotte City Council. But I can tell you is that we have been, full communications. I've been sending them periodic updates. I sent them an email today as a follow-up, and this was our first meeting. We're very early on in the process. In terms of zoning and decisions that really needs to come from the council.
So on behalf of Charlotte City Water, which I guess you can speak to, would you inform Charlotte City Council, now this is a question, that the rezoning changes are probably not the best idea, being that your infrastructure can't support it?
For each zoning request or rezoning request, there is a touch point with our engineering group to see if there is the infrastructure in place. So, you got macro and you got micro decisions that are going on here. Okay, this modification is a macro decision. Okay, so no one up here is saying that there is a big infrastructure problem.
It's the macro, because of the micro.
But you can add them up. But on the individual decisions that are being made, there is a touch point with water to make sure that we have the proper infrastructure. And there's feedback.
I was California, I moved out to your beautiful state of North Carolina, very concerned, but I'm really pleased to see the amount of people here because we did not see this in California. We watched our state disappear in 10 years. You have these guys, with all due respect to all of you, really being spoken to like a 5-year-old. And I think a lot of people should have been that person. I'm trying to suggest that we
the people, all their money, paying everybody everything that we don't want. We said that can have close and all this stuff. But what I believe from this, it just seems like Charlotte has outgrown its britches. And I don't think the city council has planned for the future safety in California, and it always down to water. So maybe with all due respect, I want to call the city of Carlsbad and ask them how they turn food water into drinking water. Because everybody has outgrown these cities. I saw every little town, they call it reincorporation. Next thing you know, you're a city. Next thing you know, they have bigger government. Next thing you know, your taxes. I couldn't even afford to live there. I was born and raised there. So I can see this coming, especially to Henry. You guys should attend every single meeting, watch with city council members, they're the ones that do all this right on your noses. And, I don't have a lot to say. And we got a lot to say because they've never said anything. I'm a great grandma. I'm really concerned about our kids' future. I think city council members really need to watch the girl human beings, how they talk now. And surprises me how we keep talking about our 50-year plan, and half the country is saying we're going to be dead by then. So I think we all better wake up on the EPA and all this crap, because it's destroying this country. So I think the water is a really important issue. I'd like to also suggest that we meet with the new battery plant going in Lake James. I just got rid of that. It makes me absolutely shake all over that they would consider building a battery plant that has been proven that these batteries don't even work. So it gets down to all this corporate money. And anyway, that's all I have to say.
I live on, Lake Hickory and, get to see the lake every day. I'm really going and very blessed over it. God's blessing more than I know what to do with. But my question really is, I see the lake level going up, but is there any way we get information about what it's going to do to the average change of the lake and taking this additional water? What's that going to do to the average lake level throughout the year? It takes away, it's not going to change. It's rain coming in, so hopefully that'll get some information we can get at some point.
Duke Energy is the reservoir operator. And so, they're going to be a stakeholder to our process. This integrated water resource plan is looking at reservoirs, and I mean, one test is if there's more water going out of the reservoir, it's not coming back, what's the effect? And so through that modeling that's being done, there will be an output. And so Duke will be involved in that. And as far as the reservoir operations, you know, it's been mentioned about shallow coves, lake levels going down. Duke is the source on those types of questions. So I would suggest make contact with them on those, but the planning work will have those considerations.
And add mission to bridging the lakes to make the bucket bigger. Who would allow that or say you can't do it?
It will be Duke Energy through a further, application.
But the state would be okay with that?
I wouldn't qualify the state to be okay with it.
Okay, right, that's,
Yeah.
You know, and then the state, and there would also be, there would be a lot of stakeholders in that process.
okay.
One of which would be, federal EPA and our state, Division of Water Resources that issues clean water act.
So it wouldn't just be.
It certainly would not be a lot of people. That's waters in the state. Now, they own the reservoir, they own the dam structure, so they have management authority of those waters. But those are still waters in the state.
Right. Yeah, and just to add on, Duke, being the regulated, they receive the applications for department that then go out to folks like the EQ, Wildlife Resources, and all the others. Kind of like a clearinghouse, just like the process we're talking about here.
You mentioned a few times how strong water is very proactive, and it seems like that because now you wait until 80% limit to go through the modification process for the thing. We appreciate proactiveness on that front. What actual proactive solutions has Charlotte Water proposed or tried to implement in the last 20 years since the original IBT certificate was issued?
What we've had a reuse system in for it at least that time, and we've expanded it. We've looked for other partners to do that. We're looking at being proactive on water loss. The water that we withdraw will treat, our ratepayers pay for, we want to keep all that water as much as we can in the device. And so those are the two that I would argue that we've been proactive on.
And I want a clarification on where exactly the withdrawal of the water is, like along the river.
There's an intake at Mountain Lake, and one in Lake Norman, kind of on the south end of the lake.
After this meeting for the local mayors and city councils and stuff, was there anything looked at in a meeting with them to see what our growth projections are, what our water projection needs are over the next 50 years?
That goes back to the Kentucky Water District. They're the planning organization for Interbasin. And so Hickory is a member, Morganton's a member, the River's a member, I believe Valdez is a member. All the communities around here that are members supply their local water supply plans to the top water to update that model.
It may be, we mentioned this, it may be a little comfort, but we, in Raleigh, DEQ, we look at the Catawba, what they've done with this Catawba Water Management Group is really a model, because we don't have this for the other river basins across the state where where all the water systems, as well as having Duke Energy, they meet regularly, they share their data. And they're sharing not just what their current use is, what the projected demands are, and developing these 10-year plans. So it may be a little comfort, but it is really a model across the state.
And just FYI, those cities are also.
So we have an additional 10 minutes, but we have time for a couple of questions. But want to be mindful of the library. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Although I realize that desalination is exceedingly expensive, there are cities that are doing it right now on the coast throughout America. That would require a pipeline from the coast to Charlotte. Sounds to me as if that would be an easy alternative, even though it's a very high cost. But if that's Charlotte using the water, then why wouldn't Charlotte be the one that pays for it? And that's just part of the growth that you would be having to include that additional water cost. So why would not water desalination be considered?
Yeah, we'll evaluate all reasonable alternatives.
It's an alternative that could be considered. Is it an actionable alternative to be considered? I think it has to be balanced with the affordability of what the ratepayers would pay in every community. If you can get property rights to extend the pipeline, all those factors, there's a whole governmental process that is required for all of those factors too. So, I mean, we're going to take your comment. It'll be listed in the law. It will be, evaluated about its merits. And if it's something that we should evaluate.
A quick question, you did mention, talk about water management. And that they're looking at the overall plan. Do they have a say in these types of requests? Do they say, you know, the feds come in and say, hey, this is gonna mess up our plan, or, you know, somebody who is taking account on the whole impact of the whole area, needs to have some say in what happens. Do they have say, or?
They have no, they're not a regulatory body, they're a planning organization. If the model yields a result that's not favorable for the goals of the Catawba Water Grid, they will say so. But they have no authority, to my knowledge, over this IBT request. All that lies with the Environmental Management Commission. The Catawba Water Grid will be one of the key stakeholders that will provide comment through the process.
Business, the body who does make the decision, did they have data on, I mean, I'm assuming that they're looking at the impacts everywhere, right? Do they have that data, and is that part of their criteria?
When you say that, I didn't catch it.
The body that does the.
The Environmental Management Commission will have the full record of data to make their consideration.
So that record of data would be in that environmental impact statement. This would be model. They use the kiosk model, that's what Duke uses, is their kiosk model for water management purposes. And so that model will be able to identify if there are projected impacts from doing a project that exists. And so then those results will be in that data. So we probably.
Has the state approved the kiosk model for state use as well?
Yes, the PEQ uses the kiosk model for the Catawba. All of the other regulations in the state are OASIS. But the statute allows for an already existing model, and it's very, very robust in the model.
Who did you referenced the Catawba Water Management, like you made a presentation to them? Who exactly? The board of directors, or? I'm just trying to figure out why is there such a disconnect between our municipalities and getting blindsided on this?
The Catawba Water Board, the chairs, a guy named Jimmy Backley and Rock Hill, South Carolina. Jeff Lineberger is the vice chair. Guy Brad Busey is,
So there were no directors. I'm looking at the website. If it's the board of directors, there's no local representation.
Not the board of directors currently, there's no representation in this area, but City of Hickory, City of Morganton, there are plenty of other, Valdez is on there, I believe, Lenore's on there. Those areas are, members, and if they were present, and it's required that you attend so many meetings of the management group to be a member in good standing. And so if those members were present during the February meeting, they saw a very similar presentation to this.
So if you have a water withdrawal permit, you're a member of that committee.
Originally, you had to be a main stem member or a main stem withdrawal under the top of the river. That's been expanded to others that get their water from the Catawba, but not directly.
Will you reduce your 400 million permitted withdrawal by the amount of the transfer?
That's a good question that we have to consider.
So if I understand this right, John Fennell, Jeff Church, I'm just reading off some of our local ones, they dropped the ball on this, is what you're saying?
I'm not saying they dropped the ball at all. I'm just saying that they were likely present, or somebody from their organization was present during the meeting where this came up. What was conveyed to those member representatives and what was conveyed to the local city councils or town councils, I'm not aware.
Those meeting minutes should be public record.
They are public record on
I'm
the
just,
website.
I need to double check, I'm really baffled that A, that there's the disconnect, and then B, the only communication avenue we
depend upon is the potable water management access. We don't use any kind of redundant means so that there's, you know, a mass dissemination and transparency of information to everyone. Potentially, I mean, I'm just giving a suggestion of maybe that we should look at other avenues of communication.
We will take that.
Do we have any other additional questions? I saw someone, I think from staff. In the back, we've got, three minutes, so they can take one more question. Okay, again, additional questions and or comments can be placed on our website. And, thank you all for the engagement this evening. Thank you. Have a great evening.